Hello, welcome back. Sorry, to the Non-Aggression Podcast, a show produced entirely by North American students who love liberty. My name is Asher. Today, I'm joined by only two hosts.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lautaro here.
If you're not familiar with us, Students for Liberty is a worldwide organization giving young adults the tools to fight for peace, limited government, free speech, and free markets. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about what's going on in the Liberty movement. We're going to discuss weekly topics, and we're just generally going to have a good time. All right, you guys ready to get started?
For sure. And I think when we did the last episode, it was on Thursday, right?
Sorry?
When we did the last episode?
Yes. Yeah,
Thursday.
it was a few days ago, maybe a Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah.
But just went live like an hour ago because I don't know, either I forgot or there wasn't there. I don't know. But we might have two going up in the span of just a few days. So
True. And what I was thinking is that a lot of news have came on not only this week regarding exactly the same topic that we discussed. So
pretty much, yes. There's a lot of talk of war in the Middle East, and as usual, the biggest world power in the world has some fingers in there. So we're going to talk about that.
True.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about first? The biggest updates in foreign policy first, Lautaro?
Sure. Like regarding the foreign policy and the meetings that happened, we had some contradictory information, and this is really interesting. Like, for example, in the field of intelligence, maybe you saw that clip of Trump speaking because basically, I think it was a comment on Tulsi Gabbard comments regarding intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard, for those that don't know, is the chief of intelligence on the political side of Donald Trump. And she said that they had information that Iran had the capability, or will probably have in the upcoming months, a capability of nuclear weapons. And then when they asked Trump, like, hey, Tulsi Gabbard just say this, he was like, no, she's wrong. And it was actually someone that he appointed. So
just to be clear, Tulsi Gabbard said no, they do not, and Donald Trump said yes. Right? Am I getting that right?
No, I think it was the opposite.
The other way around?
Tulsi Gabbard say yes,
okay.
And Donald Trump say no.
Got you. Other way around. Donald Trump said they don't. Tulsi Gabbard said they do. Okay, just to get the facts right.
Yeah. Nobody knows what is happening.
Nobody knows is the point. Yeah, it's insanity.
And only new information that we have, and this came up in the last few hours, is that at least 5 B-2 bombers have moved from the U.S.
Mm-hmm. And
they don't know the direction. And of course, if something happens, they will not let you know beforehand. But yeah. So also we have a really viral interview in case you guys want to react to it.
Yeah, for sure. So just to introduce the two people, Tucker Carlson is a very famous podcaster. He used to work for Fox News, which was the largest news broadcast network in the U.S. I think it still is. It's a very conservative news broadcast network, and he was fired from Fox News, I want to say about 2 years ago, something like that, 1 or 2 years ago, started his own show, and then now he just a few days ago, he interviewed Senator Ted Cruz, who's one of the two senators from Texas, and Ted Cruz is what we would call a Zionist, wants to be very heavily involved, more involved in protecting U.S. interests with Israel in the Middle East. And especially if you watch the full interview, it especially ties into like his religious beliefs and kind of this biblical idea that a country that sides with Israel will be blessed by God. That was kind of his things. So we have this clip that maybe we can pull up and kind of react to about going the rounds this week.
I don't know the population at all. No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country.
Can you start at the beginning
to topple?
Yeah, sure.
Is that the beginning?
I'm gonna run, by the way.
I don't know the population
At all.
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people living around?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
how could you not know that?
Studied that.
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
claims anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
They're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that,
we're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was
right with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
Israel. High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay. There it is. So...
God.
That video has 28 million views on Instagram and over 17 million on TikTok, millions more on YouTube. A lot of people are talking about, like some people are saying, oh, how's he supposed to know the exact population? How's he supposed to get to this? But I think this was really telling journalism, especially when it slipped out. Like he was like, oh yeah, we just bombed Iran. What do you mean we? Who is this we? Yeah, but what do you guys have to say?
It's really connected to the previous thing that we were mentioning, that nobody knows. Like even inside Trump's administration, people is not sure about what is happening. Mm-hmm. Also, one of the comments today of Donald Trump regarding the issue was, we are not even sure if they need us to invade. So it's like a lot of things that are contradictory, and that we don't know if maybe it is a strategy, but it doesn't seem like. If it is a strategy, it's a really bad one. Like everyone giving contrary opinions. And definitely, as you mentioned, this also is something that is related to something that a lot of people think, that maybe they think that politicians are really well known on each topic in the world. Sometimes they just decide on a really important foreign issue just by what they hear. So, and you can see in this interview, if you see it, the full, I think it's 2-3 hours of interview, you will be able to tell that they are speaking with someone that doesn't have any idea of the Middle Eastern politics, and that it has a lot of power because he's one of the main voices of the Republican Party, that is the party that has majority in the Congress, that potentially could declare a war, and he doesn't have any idea of what he's spoken about. So definitely something to consider there.
Yeah, that's definitely... I didn't listen to the full entire thing. I listened to a big chunk of it. That's definitely something I was thinking of, like the last remaining idea that I had at the back of my mind, that, oh, well, maybe the experts, they're experts. I'm just a guy who pays attention to the news. Maybe they have all this information that, us regular people don't know about. That kind of last remaining, maybe faith that could be the case. It kind of started to dwindle. No. Like, these are just people. We're all just people. They're people who watch the same news that we do, maybe have a little bit more information, but they don't have endless time to be, knowing every little detail, or even like big details, like important details sometimes. So, yeah, what do you think, Debo?
Also, this is like really problematic to see, because if a politician is a part of a larger government, right? So they eventually have more information, as you said, they eventually have a more information than us common people. So if they are not educated in a serious at least in a serious event like this, so how that tells that how the whole government is, like how everyone is acting. And like, even if, okay, when he said that he doesn't know what's the ethnicity percentage or what's the like Iran's current demography is, or all that, the thing is, if they don't know why they are attacking them, why they are like supporting them, like why all the fuss about it, like if they are saying that, okay, this is the this is the particular problem that we are thinking that we that might be problematic, so why attack them rather than not talk to them, like discuss with them, and uh, there are various like thousand other form of things that they could do rather than like supporting all that
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, and I think that just kind of ties into like a really central idea
Hmm.
of libertarianism, liberty thinking, is just kind of the fact, what's it called? It's called like the knowledge problem
Yeah.
of politicians. Just it's impossible to centrally plan every little factor of all of our lives because, like the knowledge problem, they don't have enough information to make the best decisions, and decisions are usually best made on an individual basis, and that brings the best results for everyone.
Yeah,
This
I
is-
remember a couple of years ago when I decided to try a little bit of doing politics in my country. The number one reason why I decided to join back then was because I met some of the politicians, like real life politicians, and I realized how dumb they are. And it's like, because you're probably wondering like, oh, these people is actually so smart, like you see series and you see, I don't know, Frank Underwood, and then you think, oh, this is how real life works. But then you talk with them, you discuss with them on the most minimal of political issues, then you realize that these people is just dumb, and they are just there in that seat because it's the only place where they are able to find a job, and because they do it for 10, 20 years. So yeah, definitely. And I remember that I discussed this with the Spanish libertarian as well, that he was like wondering if I should go on politics or not. And my my answer is always yes, because the people that is in politics, it is stupid. It's people that only did politics for the last 10, 20 years. You went to college, you went to university, you are probably more well educated than them. And most of the cases, professional politicians, they don't take time for researching their positions, but they just follow the position of other followers, or in the case, and this is one of the things that maybe Asher, I would like to know your point of view, or the people that support certain policies in the United States, the PACs, the super PACs, and that, because it's one of the particular things of US politics that once I hear it as they legalize corruption, basically. So it's like every major position can bribe or support politicians, and then that affects their positions and everything. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, this is we could kind of circle back to the PAX at a later point because it kind of ties into something else. But I mean, yeah, it's true. I mean, I haven't spoken to a whole ton of politicians personally, a few, but yeah, there really is like this sense in America where there's just two parties, two sides, and you just kind of you pick your side, and then you just go with what they say, and you don't really have to be an expert in facts to to get votes. You don't like I think this sounds a little bit obvious to maybe us three, but like it isn't always obvious because like people hear what they want to hear, I guess,
True.
is what I would say. Yeah, what do you think, Debo?
in like is this is the exact topic that we I talked about in the previous podcast also, like this has also been brought up that politicians with less knowledge, it's a dangerous thing, because
Hmm.
like them being dumb with they have power basically, so stupid people with power equals to like disaster always. So this is the things that we are also talking about, like that was a different context, like we were discussing about the economic solutions or economic conditions in various policy related things in South Asia. So there we talked about was how different policies, like we speculated that, I think, or we thought that the politicians know what they are doing. They are playing dumb for certain things, or either worst case scenario they are actually dumb.
Yeah,
So
can I just jump in? I just want to make be a little bit more clear on something that I may have been a little bit confusing about. It's not that I necessarily think that all politicians are stupid. It's that I think some of them have very high IQs.
Yeah.
It's that they're ignorant.
Yeah.
And they have the wrong perspective and motives. And so you can have, a 200 IQ, but if you're not knowledgeable on what's going on in the world, and if you're going from the perspective of you're just trying to help yourself, all that intelligence isn't going to help regular people, I guess, is kind of what I want to make more clear. So I'm not even, I might say like, oh, Donald Trump, is really stupid. I don't think he's actually stupid. No. I think he could not have gotten where he is right now if he wasn't smart. But like,
really smart,
it's the ignorance.
But if I make it to speak about economics, I will probably know this. Same if I do with Ted Cruz to speak about the Middle Eastern politics. Mm-hmm. Is that the experts are there for a reason. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of politicians, that's not the case. That they just believe that they are the knowledge in everything. And then, as you mentioned, like this problem with knowledge, you cannot have all the knowledge in the world. It will be way more mature for Ted Cruz to say, look, I don't know why are the reasons I support it because my party does it. That will be really more honest.
That would be way more honest.
Picking up facts and things that don't make any sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you guys have anything more before we take a look at the next topic?
We can go to the next topic.
Okay.
And also we have the video.
Oh yeah. Let's actually pull that up. This would be a good time.
Perfect.
So this, as you're pulling that up, this is a video I found on X, Twitter. This is from, I believe, 8 years ago, or the run up to the 2016 election, and Trump is being interviewed on his perspective on the Middle East, war in the Middle East, and the Bush, kind of the George Bush neocon perspective on that. And I think it's very relevant comparing the war or the events in Iran to the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. So yeah, if we could just watch some of that.
Now you can take it any way you want, and it took Jeb Bush, if you remember at the beginning of his announcement, when he announced the president, took him 5 days. He went back. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Took him 5 days before his people told him what to say. And he ultimately said it was a mistake. The war in Iraq, $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
But so you still think he should be impeached?
I think it's my turn, isn't it? You do whatever you want. You call it whatever you want. I want to tell you, they lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There was none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right.
There you go.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm not obviously, the situation in Iraq is different from the situation in the Middle East today, but it sure seems like there's a lot of similarities, and it really seems to me that the politicians have learned nothing and are not trying anything new. They're basically trying it seems like they haven't learned anything, and we could be having some deja vu here. So yeah, what do you guys think about that clip?
The thing is, I find it literally like it's a duality or thing. I think like Donald Trump, when he announced that before the taxes, I guess. So when he announced that we are paying this much dollar to Pakistan or this much dollar to these countries, all that. but he is still supporting some countries in the same way. Like he had a logic that why we are supporting those countries, they are not doing anything for us, or like it doesn't need it's not helping us that much. But his government is still supporting Israel and other like countries also. So that's a duality I'm thinking, like,
Yeah.
okay, why these two ways? Like also this Iran situation also, like he spoke about Iran at that time, but now he's doing the same thing for like Iran now.
Yeah, and I just want to provide some more context. So for the people who don't know, I think in that video he was specifically talking about Jeb Bush, who is the brother of George Bush, I think in that specific video. But it's all kind of a Bush dynasty, right? Their father was president. Jeb Bush was like, I think he was governor of Florida. Yeah. I think he ran with Ted Cruz in 2016. So you see, it's all connected, right? No, I think Ted Cruz was his VP nominee in 2016, something like that. So like criticizing their platform back, so many years ago, 8-9 years ago, but now this is totally different. Now we know what we're doing. Now it's not going to be a big waste of money and lives if we bomb Iran.
And it's also like as we were saying, all this thing of okay, Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, let's invade them, and then you realize it's not actually true. It's really connected to what we are seeing in Iran right now, that we have this contradictory information that okay, does actually Iran has the capability, yes or no? And nobody has given a clear answer to that.
Yeah.
So basically,
the director of national or of intelligence seems to have an answer, but
yeah,
like, is that the right answer? We don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
literally. And I just like, even trying to be a little bit more charitable to kind of the neocon perspective, even trying to be more charitable, I would at least like to have consensus on what's going on before we rush into a war. Like, even if a war was a good thing, which I don't believe it is, I would at least like to have consensus on what's going on within the administration. Like, can we at least have some agreement there? That's all I ask. Yeah.
And then regarding the second video, and this is something that I follow a lot on TikTok, but I want to know the local perspective regarding the New York elections.
Sure.
What can you say about them?
Yeah, okay, so kind of switching tacks. So right now there's going to be a mayor election of New York City. And as you know, New York City is it's the largest city in the United States. Very important city. Basically, the two front runners are, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Zoran Mamdani, who is a Democratic socialist, versus Andrew Cuomo, who was the former governor of New York. And this is just crazy to me that he's even running, because he resigned after an awful scandal. Like almost a dozen women came forward with like reports of sexual assault. And like, that wasn't even the only scandal. There was all kinds of corruption scandals. He lied about how many old people were dying of COVID to make his numbers look better. Bribery. He used government money to like fund his autobiography or something like that. Super corrupt. And he's like leading the race right now, a few years later as mayor. So like, first of all, that's crazy that he's leading the race after all this. And then Zoran Mamdani is a socialist, a self-described socialist. So I think that really says a lot about where New York is, where our country is. Like, these are the options that New York has. And like, the person in charge of New York City has a ton of power of what goes on in New York as a whole. So this isn't, like another mayor election. This is the Democratic primary, by the way, happening next Tuesday. It's not the actual election, but New York is a solidly blue state. So who wins the primary will, like, we all know, they'll win the election. So, yeah. Do you guys know anything Anything you want to share about this election or what you know about one of the two?
Follow a lot the Sora McDani campaign in TikTok. Is a really good campaign.
He's doing a great job. I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of marketing, yeah, I've been paying attention.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. In the fact that every time America seems more open to socialist idea that already been tried in a lot of parts in the world. And one of the things that was in discussion, I remember that I saw in a clip, was the price of rent in New York City. And of course, we all know that rent in New York City is probably one of the most, if not the most expensive city in the world for renting a studio and apartment. And rather to have like, even like, look, I will strongly support if he's just go like full communist and say we will build 20 chapter buildings like concrete and big and with the communist logo on top. I think that's a way better solution that just regulate the Airbnb and that.
It's crazy to say that. I know it sounds crazy to say as a hardcore libertarian that like you almost
make more sense. Like, okay,
I know.
will just build tall buildings. That makes sense. You can put people there.
Yeah.
But just regulating the rent prices and everything has been tried in a lot of places. Not only in Europe, they tried in Latin America, they tried in Asia. There is no other way rather than building more. That's the only solution.
It's very simple. You want people need a place to live, build places to live. Like that's been a major part of the campaign is rent prices and rent control. One little bit worrying thing is that some people are saying like he wants to eliminate ownership, like he wants to eliminate just any kind of apartment ownership. I don't know if that's extreme. I don't know if that's an exaggeration, but I mean, people are desperate, especially young people are feeling very desperate. Like it just feels like it's an unlivable place. And Cuomo just kind of stands for the establishment, the existing Democratic establishment that's been, it's kind of a dynasty. Like his father was governor before him. He knows all of the right people. He has all the connections. He's got the support from all the big newspapers and all the, the Democratic Committee of New York and all that kind of stuff. And so I think you see a lot of young people are like, okay, I'm tired of this. If, whatever it takes. And I don't know if you saw AOC recently endorsed him, which was pretty big. That pushed his numbers up. Kind of another voice of the young Democratic Socialist movement in America. What's this? Is this a clip?
Are you familiar with this Simpson episode where Homero goes to New York?
I don't think I've seen this one.
Yeah, it's basically where he goes, and then New York is a complete chaos, and everyone steals his luggage. It's like how I imagine New York. I never been, but I have a lot of friends that have been in New York, and then
I've been in New York.
Like last 2 times they were, it was awful city to be around. A lot of
as a tourist, from my experience, I think I've been twice. As a tourist, it's not a horrible tourist destination, but to live there, it's a nightmare. Like, and even as a tourist, there's a couple parts where like, there's a lot of dirty areas and there's a lot of like, you never see. I don't know if you've heard this from your friend or something. You never see any kids walking around the street, which was crazy to me. We were walking around and like, there's no families with kids. I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions, but like we didn't see any. So I don't know if that's like telling of like it's not good for families or like it's too dangerous for kids. But we didn't see like any kids or any families with kids. So it was, again, this was a few years ago, but that was really striking to me. Did you have the picture of the police officer up because he wants to like cut the police budget in half? I don't know if that's what you were thinking.
Also. This whole like defund the police movement, that's also for me like crazy. Look, we have our own communists in my country. None of them was too crazy to say to defund the police. Like America really has a problem there.
I hear the word government defund and I'm like,
yeah, maybe.
Government defund? All right. We are switching. I'm switching cams really quick.
Yep. I'm thinking like other measures. Well, this thing of the ownership that you were mentioning. I think what he wants to do is to all the companies that have a lot of properties. As you know, there are a lot of people that maybe they rent offices, or I mean, it's New York, is the financial center of the world. You need to have those companies. They want him to tax them or take them out or make it illegal. That will be the complete collapse. And that's something really similar to one of the measures that they tried to implement in Argentina. They did. And one of the reasons the first goal or the first victory of Milei was to solve the rent problem was especially because of this law that was so communist on the sense of just like regulating everything, maximum prices, minimum prices, no private competition. And what it causes is that someone that do have an apartment that they want to rent, they don't do it because it's too costly for them.
Mm-hmm.
They sell or they simply don't rent it.
Yeah. Do you know? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask. Do you know any like statistics off the top of your head? Because I have heard that Milei has it massively improved the housing situation. Do you know like any stats off the top of your head? Like
totally improved, especially on the city of Buenos Aires. That is something that you can compare to New York City. It's also a really big city.
It's massively improved.
But yeah, that had improved, and the only thing that he did was to remove the law. It was not like he need to make any kind of magic. The only thing that he did was remove a law that was bad and then just leave the market to do the rest. And something as simple as that fixes the housing situation.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you. Yeah, I don't know how to pull it up, but I pulled up a graph in my other tab, and you can just see like apartment price up, and then around 2023, 2024, it's starting to go down. Surprise! What?
Can you share me that graph?
I don't know how to.
Send it on the group that we have.
Okay.
Essentially, removing the gatekeeping is the way to build more or like progress. I guess that's what Milei did. So
everywhere. Houses is something. Of course, nowadays the concept of building houses that was around in the mid-century was okay. Everyone has a family. Everyone lives with their couple, so you need bigger houses and less space. Nowadays, it's not like that. A lot of people may be single. A lot of people is maybe married but without kids. So to accommodate that is a task of the market. No government will ever be able to do it because they don't have that information and they will never have it. The only one that has that information are the companies that do sell properties that they know, okay, these neighborhoods are better for families. These neighborhoods are better for people that works in Manhattan. So the only way of doing that and to improve the housing situation is like that. Of course, when someone comes for the first time in a U.S. election and say, let's regulate everything and then everyone will have a house. If people is that dumb of believing that, I just recommend a quick Google search on how
quick Google search. Just
it's that simple.
Exactly. And that's the thing I really wish how do I want to say this? I'm really glad that this podcast has perspectives from people from other countries, because it is a massive weakness I see in America is we think we're the only country in the world and we don't look at other countries' policies. I don't see politicians in America saying, okay, we want to do this thing. You can see this isn't fully up to date. I think it's not all the way up to this latest month, but you can see it's starting to go down. No. And anyway, as I was saying, like in America, we don't look at what other countries have tried to do. We're like, oh, it sounds good. But no, like, look at what other countries tried to do when they tried to do rent control, when they tried to, like, yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to add, like,
there is a really interesting case, and this is for everyone that maybe listen to us from Spain. They are really familiar because Spain did implement all these regulations and everything. And then, of course, the prices skyrocket, and now they have something that is, for me, really fun, especially on the city of Barcelona, where I have a part of my family that lives there. And I found it really fun because now they are protesting against tourism. they're saying, no, these tourists are taking all the space for people to live, and that's what is causing rent increase. Is not. It's basically that you have a law that makes Spain 40-50% more expensive to live than the rest of Western Europe. It's not tourism. It's not that person that goes, takes a cheap hostel. You will not live in a cheap hostel. You are a citizen of your city. But yeah, for some reason, people get into their minds that no, now is to blame the tourists because they rent an Airbnb for 3 days that I don't have a place to live. That's not.
It's nuts. No, I mean, tourism literally brings in money. Like, it's. I don't think
Spain's economy lives, especially Barcelona, from tourism.
I don't know how you make it like more simple than that. It's
about tourism. You can literally see South Asia's Maldives example. Like Maldives was a poor country. Like it was really, but it has the highest GDP right now. Like in South Asia, because
which one does? India?
Maldives.
Oh, really?
Tourism. Yeah, Maldives.
Interesting.
Highest as in like it's one of the highest, not highest, but it's one of the. But the
just
thing is,
from
like,
tourism.
Yeah, it's just for tourism, and because it has lot of islands around it, so those are privatized and eventually gave jobs to other people in the country, and eventually it made the economy better because they had money to spend on. So gatekeeping is the problem, I guess. So government doing gatekeeping through licensing and saying that this is the policy that you should maintain to, that's where the problem lies. And that's how Millet actually did show us that, okay, it can be done.
Yeah, I'm seeing one of the comments that someone left regarding the separatist movement in Catalonia. As you may know, Barcelona and all the region of Catalonia wants to be their separate state. It's really fun because they do have like this right wing and left wing inside the same movement of separatism from Spain. And it's fun that this whole issue of tourists being the bad persons and the number one cause of renting prices being so big, that is so generalized in the general public. They do believe that tourism are a problem. And you start asking people from Barcelona, okay, what do you work for? And they say, oh, I work in a restaurant or I work in an hotel. And what do you think you will work?
Who's going to stay there? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I assume they have plenty of zoning laws and zoning restrictions.
And no building at all.
Yeah.
A lot of regulations. Maybe if you go to Barcelona one day, you will see, of course, all buildings look beautiful, but you need to also think that it's a modern city and it has a lot of population and that people needs to live somewhere. So not all buildings can look like a marvelous building. Some buildings will have to look like a residential building because people need to live somewhere. And those need to be big, need to be tall, need to be modern. And there can't be any regulation there to say, okay, it's only up to 4 floors because we say so. So yeah, that's one of the things that many cities will face in the upcoming years.
I think it's really public property debate that we have on SFL. Like if public having private, public, not public, private property. Yeah. So having private property eventually creates more economy because like private property. Having the private property, one has to maintain his own private land, or he has the ownership basically. So he will take care of it. So even if he's building like let's say 20-storied building, and he will keep in check that okay, I need to keep the building or invest in it that way that it will last for this many years or it has this much safety standards. It's his concern basically because he has the ownership of the place. So if government says okay, you can only build this much or you can only do this, then it eventually like he can't invest more into it and he won't care about it that much. So he won't have that much of an attachment to the property or his own thing. So that's the problem, I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, especially regarding New York City, because we were kind of talking about that earlier. A lot of people don't know this, but they're also not just we need to build more buildings for things like this, but there's also lots of empty buildings that are just doing nothing right now. I just looked up this article. This says there's 90 million square feet of empty office building perpetually in New York that has just been sitting and doing nothing. It says the equivalent of 30 full Empire State buildings are empty in New York. And if you think for a little bit, why might that be? Why do we have all this empty buildings just sitting there? It's because of regulations. It's because it's hard to open that up and let people go there. And if we simply, like, even without building more, which we should be building more, even with some of that, like, 90 million square feet, you think that isn't going to significantly help the housing problem in New York just from letting people, sell and rent out space without all these taxes and fees and permissions and zoning laws and
something that a lot of people don't realize is because, of course, when you pay rent, it doesn't feel good. Like, okay, I'm just putting my money there. But for a lot of owners, when they do have to make a maintenance of the building, they have to pay taxes and everything. It's not one of the best business in the world to have a property. It gives around 4 to 7% in dollars of the value of the property per year. So if you buy an apartment, you should wait at least 15 years to get your money back. So it's not a good investment at all.
That's interesting.
So if you put more regulations on top of that, that's when you start seeing the empty buildings. Because, of course, why should I rent an apartment that I have if I don't have any way of solving a dispute, or maybe someone will take the apartment, they will destroy it, and then I have to repair it and lose all my money. Why should I rent it? And especially laws and mutual agreement between people, those are the ones that solve the problem, not a law that says, okay, now everyone needs to fix the apartment they live in. It's not like that. It's not something that you can just do by magic.
And another thing I want to add that's kind of on top of what you're saying, there's also an insanely high property tax in New York. And if you think that doesn't matter, it absolutely matters, because with like, so the value, I don't know if I'm explaining this super well, but the value of the apartments and houses in New York are super high because they haven't built enough. Because the value is so high, that makes the property tax go super high, because I think you have to pay like 1.5% of its entire value every year.
That's crazy.
$1 million. Quick mental math. What's one? Why am I so slow? What is $1 million? Is that 10,000, 20, 15,000 a year?
Yeah, no,
right?
it's
For $1
too
million?
much, especially if you consider that thing that I was telling you, that only you win 5% per year. So if you are already losing 1.5, is already something that if you are the owner of a building, you say, okay, why should I renovate? Why should I create more chapters of the building if they are not making me more money? Of course, all of those things add up. And I was like trying to check prices for condos in New York. Let's see if I can share my screen with that.
There's also a 6% additional renting tax. I just looked it up. They have an additional 6% renting tax. The government takes 6% off every time you rent. For some reason, and I'm sure we could get into all more taxes and fees and things like that. I don't
like
if you want to, dude.
So, well, of course, this one does make sense.
Okay, that one, but still, and these aren't top of the line, are they? Right? Are these just regular apartments?
Regular first website that I see. But you don't see anything like for a regular person to invest.
What's really expensive, bro?
Yeah. Especially if you are mentioning what you were mentioning regarding families, for example, you cannot live in one room with your family. So of course, people that do have children, they won't choose New York.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, anyway, So I guess the next time we go live, that election will have happened. And we're gonna see if we get the New York gets the old guard, the old establishment Democratic Party, or new socialism with all the rent control. I think it was really interesting. I don't know if you saw signs. I was seeing some pictures on Twitter of businesses putting up signs that says, just so you know, if the what's the socialist again? If
Magnani,
Magnani, if he is elected, we will be forced to raise our prices this amount. They're just putting the sign on their windows. And I think that's a pretty smart thing to do. Like, hey, just be out front. Like, if he gets elected, we're going to have to put our prices up this much just to, like, exist, probably.
What is honestly crazy to me is that because that's something that happens in a lot of cities, like especially in Europe, even Latin America, that some crazy leftist guy gets the control of a city, is never for good. Like, I never hear of a city that a communist guy took, and it was actually a great city to live. Like, for example, one of the biggest examples of that in Europe is Berlin. And Berlin is known for being full of trash and everything. So you are like, okay, come on, guys. Like, what's your example of a good government, like local city government that do have a lot of power, especially for destruction? I don't think a city has the power of changing a lot the economy, but definitely has a destructive power.
And
definitely plays really bad.
And you're talking about modern Berlin. If I assume, right? If we go back, however many years, we go back to East and West Berlin. I don't know if you remember which Berlin was split into two sides: East Berlin, West Berlin. Take a guess which side the Sands are living were better. Well, it was the Western capitalist side, which was far better, and people were trying to escape to get over the sides of the.
Completely forget about that after a couple of years, and now, if I'm not mistaken, the left-wing party together with the ecologists are governing Berlin. And it's a city that I've been once, and it was full of trash, full of how I imagine New York, literally. So every expression that I hear from Berlin is the same as I receive from New York. These cities that are completely full of trash, that people cannot live because it's too expensive, that they need to rent together with 6 people in order to live. And that definitely is a model that is not good for developing a wealthy city.
Yeah, it's Just look at history. Look at what came before. Well, did you guys have anything else that we didn't bring up yet? Like to mention?
We can go back. We have some memes about Iran. We can
pull those up.
Discuss them.
Let's see. Oh, we have some comments. Let me just take a look. I'm just gonna read the comments. What do you guys think is the most empowering change we can make in developing countries? For me personally, in Brazil, I believe education is the most important changes. Even though we boast an 89% enrollment rate in high school, we rank as one of the lower countries in financial literacy scores on the OECD PISA scores. So how can we ensure education and cascade sort of effect that happens in society, government, etc., even in developing countries? Kind of a long question, but I think... What would your answer be, Latero?
I'm thinking definitely education in developing countries is really important. And also we need to think on, education for what? Are we just going to educate people for them to just... There is a famous Twitter guy in Argentina that says, why are we sending people to university for learning how to be communist? It's like, no, if you go to universities to form yourself, learn how to make a business, learn that. And sadly, a lot of the education, especially in Latin American developing countries, have been taken away for ideological reasons. And you only learn in university how to throw rocks to a police station. It's not a good place to learn. And as someone that studied both in Latin America and in Europe, I can tell that the quality of education is way different. And I'm not even sure if the money spent is that different. I don't think it's a problem of finance. I think it's a problem of objectives. And for a lot of governments, sadly in Latin America, Africa, Asia, they see education just as one thing that I can say for winning votes, but because we don't have a long-term strategy as a country, we just put a little bit of money there, we just forgot, and then they can learn themselves. Sadly, I think that's the reality of education in a lot of places. What's your take on this, Tibo?
Yeah, so education in my terms, like if I have to say from the classical liberal perspective, like Milton Friedman literally said that abolish the education department because it doesn't like serve the purpose. Because if some central authorities dictating that this is the things that you should learn, but everything is actually connected to each of the things. Like let's say if there is a good place for market, let's say free market is exists there, does exist there, then there would be a lot of entrepreneurships, and a lot of entrepreneurship means a lot of businesses going around, and business will need people who are skilled, and for those skills to be learned, education is needed. So eventually the market will decide that this is the skills that we need. So education, privatized educations would create those courses, and people will get those kind of skilled people for that kind of businesses. So
Yeah.
eventually we don't need to rely on even, the government actually. So of course education important for self development, also for learning new things, also the societal development also. But the thing is, it should not be the government that's in control, rather than what you need in the society, what you need to be skilled for yourself. Self reasoning is the thing that I feel most important.
Yeah, yeah. Just really quick, how would you describe like the state of education in both your countries of Argentina and Bangladesh? Like, is it good or bad, or really quick? What would you say?
I will say that for Argentina, primary and high school are actually a decent level.
Okay.
If you compare it with countries in the region, which is not the best region to compare yourself with. And we don't measure like with the PISA scores because of a decision of the previous government and of the professors actually that didn't want it to be tested for some reason. I think that, yeah, primary school is really good in Argentina. High school, I would say midway, and definitely a higher education is really bad. That's the word.
Sure. And then just real quick, what would you say, Debo?
Yeah, it's the same situation in Bangladesh also. Like,
okay.
But the thing is, little bit different is like nowadays the education that I have been brought up, like I have been educated in, that was the curriculum was little bit different. But now it has been like after COVID, I would say the curriculum has been dropped so much that its standard also dropped. So nowadays, let's say a ninth standard kid in Bangladesh won't know a lot of the things that of my time sixth standard people or students would know normally. So that's the problem that I'm seeing also in as in the higher student higher studies. It's same as Argentina. Like it's
Yeah.
I say a slang words, but the thing is it's bad.
Okay.
I escaped the matrix, I guess, because I didn't follow. Even though I'm a textile engineer, like I studied textile engineering, but I focused on my passion of policy and economics. So I think that's the thing.
Yeah, and I would just say, a lot of our viewers know how things are in America, but America is fine. The education is fine compared to the worldwide, but compared to countries that are at a similar level of wealth, it is awful. And we spend way more than any other country in the world on education, lower education and upper education. And while it's actually might be a little bit of the reverse, whereas since people do like to come for a higher education, even though it's super expensive, but our lower education is awful. I was just reading about I think it's 50% of kids in Ohio public school can't read at all. We have 40 million adult Americans who cannot pass a basic reading test. And And just the amount we spend is just insane. We keep spending more and more and more on education. Every single time a politician will say, we're going to fix it, we just need to spend more, and it doesn't work. And then we compare it to the private sector, and guess what? The private schools have far better results at half the cost. Who would have guessed? And you also get more choice in where you want to send your kid at the private schools, and you get more of a say in what's taught. And wow. It's almost as if privatization is bringing about better results. But anyway, just wanted to add the American perspective on education for that, where I'm really hoping that my state gets more school choice, because a few states have passed laws for school choice. They give parents more options where they want to send their kids with their tax dollars. So yeah, that's kind of the American perspective.
So if I can add to the education statement, in the earlier podcast that I was talking about, there also we discussed about education things. So in education in South Asia, like what is the problem with government being controlling of the education? So the thing is, in I won't say the country, in a country where the government says that okay, schools must have a lab room for computers and projectors in classroom. So those are mandatory rules that have been set by the government. But the thing is, it's a government-owned building, and the curriculum is also provided by government. And the while doing a literally inspection of the facilities, the teachers don't know how to operate the things. The technician who was in the facility, he doesn't know how to operate the things. So those things are literally sitting for years or years.
No.
Also,
so you're saying, wait, let me get this straight. So you're paying money for all this equipment that isn't even used.
No, they don't even know how to use those. And another thing is, also this is from my country. Government says that the same thing, that every school must have a computer lab. So government provided from the tax dollars money laptops for like 50 or 40 laptops for every like most of the government owned schools. Okay. Half of the teachers took all of like one laptop for each, and eventually the lab room had just 5 or 6 laptops for the whole school of students.
That's really fun, Divo, because in my country they also have the same problem. We also have like, I think this is a politician way of saying, okay, how do we solve the problems of education? Let's just send them things, and they will figure it out.
Yeah, no, it's same. We just had a vote to this is not quite with the technology, but a local, very local government that I do keep track of where I live. They just voted to spend, I think, $10 million on gutting out the pool at the public school to replace it with an Olympic-sized pool. Now, I live in the Midwest. I live in somewhat rural America. This is not a large public school. This is not like a hub. It's like this small, decently small town school that is now has to completely take apart a pool that was working just fine for the kids to, have their whatever pool education, have their pool sports, whatever, to make it Olympic sized. And the taxpayers have to pay for it.
No.
Oh,
That's just a real world example of something that's actually happening in real time. So I feel like I wanted to add that.
Yeah, people who advocate for this kind of things, like let's say, okay, we want free stuff, we want this and this, government to subsidize us for this and this. The thing is, it's good for only those people who are getting those subsidies or free stuff. But the rest of the people, 80% or 90% people, they are getting robbed off and they don't even know.
I have something really fun to relate with this whole issue of education and how government intervention changed. You see this laptop? This is what every Argentine student got when they were 13 years old. It's really a really bad laptop, like totally awful. You cannot use it to enter Google Chrome because it exploded and everything. But it did have one positive thing, that was that it could run Counter-Strike. The game Counter-Strike. Thanks to this computer, now Argentinian teams are one of the best in the world. We didn't have any educational development, but that's like a small bit.
So you're saying it can barely open Google, but it can run CS?
Yeah, Counter-Strike, it worked perfectly.
That's really so funny. No, and I mean, I'm assuming the teachers don't get to decide what laptops are best for their students, right? No, the government decides. Yeah,
the government just created
government decides.
Really expensive, of course, because there was some corruption involved, as always. They just sent it to everyone. The computer was awful, totally unupdated for those times. I'm talking 2014, 2012. So yeah, you can imagine that. Totally awful government program, and it's like a way of saying, okay, we need to solve educational problems. Let's just throw money, see what happens.
I don't think we are like arguing that it's a bad thing, because like maybe the intention was pure, or maybe the intention was good, but the thing is, you are paying from the tax dollars. You are paying from like you're spending from the people's money. So that's what the problem is.
Yeah. And I just want to add, like, my personal opinion is I'm not expecting us to get rid of public schools anytime soon. I'm not saying that public schools are even necessarily a net bad thing, because I'm not an anarchist. I appreciate some idea of kind of having, because education is important. But it is very telling that the private schools are functioning way better than public schools. So I just, for people, who got the thing that, I don't want poor kids to have education. No, I'm not saying that. It's just, it really drives home the point of, big governments trying to solve things with their spending, taxes, yada, yada, yada. So I just wanted to clarify.
Like, the whole government doesn't have to be like publicized. Like, government doesn't have to take care of the whole building. Some of the aspects can be privatized also. Like, they can give some of the aspects, like let's say they're giving the laptop thing, or giving some of the facilities to their students. They can ask for some private organizations to like fund them, so that if the school does good or better than other schools, they eventually get a better promotion for that brand or that person. So this is a whole real world scenario that can be implemented if they wanted. But
there's a lot. There are good nonprofits that kind of provide education. I can't think of any at the top of my head, but I have heard of some good nonprofits that provide education, especially online stuff. There's a lot of free online resources for kids.
Google also
is one.
Paid for what? Sorry?
No,
I didn't hear what.
Google is one of the main.
Google
gives like the whole scholarship regarding the programs that they have, the software and everything, and that does have a cost. I think I saw it somewhere that the main provider of education in the planet by money size is Google.
I would not be surprised. Yeah, I know. I know in America also we get a big amount of funding from the casinos, but that's a whole nother matter. That's unrelated. That doesn't really have to do with. But
like I was Google, like in India, Google literally paid like one guy who like did a coding thing for Google, like he fixed a bug or something. Yeah, so he wanted like a specific amount of money for the school that he runs on his own, not a public school he runs for the orphans. Google literally paid all of the students like a big laptop or like lab kind of facilities, and made the whole school better and modernized. So yeah, these are some of the things that does do good. So
really easy example.
I think we are at the end of live, I guess. We are past 1 hour.
Okay. I guess we will react to some memes next time. I guess we can finish this one out. Thank you so much for listening and watching along if you're on YouTube. Yeah, we're gonna try to get back to recording and posting on Saturdays is the goal that we're shooting for. But yeah, leave any comments on things you want us to cover, and make sure to hit the notification on Instagram, because that way you see when we go live. I think you can specifically hit notification just for lives, I think is an option.
Yeah.
And yeah, my name is Asher. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.